Welcome one, welcome all, and of course, it is a Cincinnati Bengals slate tonight. I'm excited about that. We had the Chiefs eke out another win, winning the coin toss, obviously, in overtime against the Bucks. AP, you nailed on the script there.
No, I didn't. I didn't.
You did on the Chiefs side. Studs, captain.
I didn't.
The only miss was Hopkins.
It was massive failure. I let everyone down. I said we got to project Worthy over Hopkins. It might be like the worst take of all time. Like Worthy's.
Yeah.
I actually missed the first half of that game. My son had he plays cello. He had a strings concert, and so yeah, obviously going to support my kids and not going to worry about the Chiefs. I caught the second half. I missed that one Worthy play. Like he should have caught that, right, and stayed in bounds.
Yeah, it should have been a touchdown for sure.
Yeah, obviously, Diop, a veteran. Yeah, that was like the one. I had the script nailed outside of that. And had I had that flipped, it would have been a very, very good night.
Because it ended up being Hopkins captain in the winner, I believe, right? Then
he was low owned. I'm so angry. He was 35% owned overall, and he was like 4 or 5%, maybe less in the captain. When I saw that, I'm like, you donkey, like you're such an idiot. Like I was so mad at myself.
Well, the leaderboard shifted so much in that game at the end because the Bucks ended up scoring, not going for 2, which I thought was absurd. Not going for 2 in Arrowhead. Dumb. You're down your best offensive weapons. I did not get that call at all. But obviously they had the touchdown there to Ryan Miller, and then you had the overtime where Kareem Hunt got the bonus, got the touchdown. I mean, that slate. You said it, though. We would get the over. We would have all that. Yeah. And then, obviously...
And the Chiefs wouldn't cover. They never cover those spreads.
They never cover. Yeah, that's what you were saying. Like, the whole time. The only thing was Hopkins. But tonight, it's a little bit different. We have the Bengals heading into Baltimore, a team that they should have beat a few weeks ago. They missed a field goal in overtime to win the game from Evan McPherson. Then the Ravens went down the field and scored. I look at these two teams here, AP, because we have the base build up. And... we both expect an offensive explosion. The total is in the mid-50s, 53.5, I think is what you said. You also have, just Lamar Jackson playing the best football of his career. You have Joe Burrow absolutely cooking it week in and week out. The defense for the Bengals is not really the greatest at all. It's very subpar. The Baltimore Ravens secondary is also in the same mix for their standards. When we built out this base build, and I'm just kind of sorted by salary right now, obviously, you're seeing it in the flex. You got Lamar Jackson. You're getting over 60% of the main studs. Zay Flowers kind of squeezed. Chase Brown got all the work last week. This makes sense. I want to go to captain. Still sorted by salary. None of these guys are in the captain. Obviously, you can see right here, Charlie Kolar is the top build, the top projected scorer. And we do the base build for one reason, right? See where these, raw projections kind of lead you to. And right now, it's trying to lead you to a path of just super cheap captain. And you know what? It makes a little bit of sense. You start to come down here. You got Charlie Kolar, who did well against the Bengals. I know he had at least 1, maybe 2 catches against the Bengals in the first game for 600, 900 in the captain. That's not bad. But all these cheap captains are populating. Another note real quick, AP, before I throw it to you. Eric All, who has been really effective over the last couple months for the Bengals as the rookie tight end, has torn his ACL. That brings Tanner Hudson, Drew Sample, and those are the main 2 beneficiaries. Mike Gesicki isn't really much of a tight end as much as he is a receiver. AP, what's your take on these raw base build numbers here?
Before we get into that, what's interesting about Kolar, so the past optimal, the last time these two teams played each other, Chase captain, T. Higgins was in the game. He was also in the flex in the optimal. Burrow, Lamar, Bateman, and Kolar. So you need, and it left the salary used was $47,800. So that was the last we saw. It was crazy offensively. It was absolutely ridiculous, points galore. And yeah, the other thing that I'd bring up before we dive into that, probably must win. Like, I'm not going to say must win, but it's a big game for both teams. Like the Ravens, Snyder's Ravens are 6-3. Like if you drop this game, you're 6-4. Like, I don't know, Snyder. I mean, you've been talking a lot of shit. I don't know, my guy Snyder. I mean, one team, Chiefs, right here, undefeated. And I think the Bengals are, with how Joe Burrow has been playing, I think the Bengals are live here. This Ravens defense is terrible, man. They've been so bad. I know they've had injuries. I get it. But outside of that, they've let teams absolutely feast on them. So diving into the base build, what am I seeing? One, I hope these chalk options are going to be popular. You know, we love to play studs at captain. My one issue is we see teams change up their scheme defensively against the Bengals when T. Higgins is out. When T. Higgins is in, I think it enhances the value of Jamar Chase and the nuke games that he can have, just because it's you got to cover both of those guys. If you don't, you're going to get absolutely cooked. Without him in there, teams can scheme him away, make it more difficult on him. So that would be kind of the case against him. I honestly think that it's going to be one of those slates where we got to consider like Lamar captain, potentially Burrow captain with how he's been playing as well. Where Chase may be if the Ravens decide to double him, box him, maybe he doesn't get that ceiling type of performance, but it's still going to be viable in the flex. So I think it's interesting. Some of these cheap punt captains they're going to lead to the same similar build path. Yep. So hopefully this translates to what the field is doing, because I know I'm going to get a lot different.
Yeah, I mean, it's also important to note too, Isaiah likely doesn't look like he's going to be, in for this one, right? That's why Kolar's a little bit popping. I completely missed that before I mentioned Kolar. And it is interesting because that was with Likely and Andrews both healthy the last time that Kolar was in that optimal lineup against the Bengals in that showdown. AP, you're right. I think, you want a stud captain, especially when the studs today are just insane. But I also want to slightly push back on that, right? Like, this is playing devil's advocate. You have injuries to both teams, man contributors, right? Like, you look at Isaiah Likely, he's been very good for the Ravens this year. Hasn't been that great down the last month or so, but that's why Kolar's popping, right? Eric Hall, Bengals, basically their number one tight end. I'm not considering Gesicki a tight end at all. This is as a Bengals fan, right? He is strictly playing wide. You rarely see him, with a hand in the dirt pre-snap. Yeah, that's why Tanner Hudson pops, right? You have T. Higgins missing, right? Or probably going to miss, I think. You have Trent Irwin here. Jermaine Burton, I think, is going to be a very good talking point here in a little bit. Mark Andrews, he's only 4,200, right? Like, I'm not even a big Mark Andrews guy, but he's 4,200. Like, that is extremely captain viable. I just think that the cheap captain, despite funneling, and that's the big word that we're going to use, AP, because if you're playing Charlie Kolar captain, how many people going to jam in this build right here, right? It's easy to do. And it's super chalk though. It's going to dupe probably maybe 300 times. It's not going to
run the contest sim on it real quick. I want to see what the dupes look like.
So this is the contest sim, and we have only 2,000 lineups built. This is for the $15 that we got it up. Let's see how many dupes it's going to say for this top team, right? We got to sort it by projected score, and then we can just see by dupes. The one saving grace, AP, leaves 1,100. But look, if you project Charlie Kolar for 3-4 points, this is where you're going to end up. Only 4 dupes. I'm shocked.
4 dupes per 2,000 lineups.
Yeah, per 2,000. So you'd be looking at probably 80.
12. Look at that one right there. 12 per 2,000. Very popular build path. 3-3 cheap captain.
Yep. And this is the base build, right? Like, we're just doing projected score. I want to see these top teams. You're going to see high dupes on these. I want to see what the lowest dupe. Yeah, here you go. Here's one dupe and a projected high score. That maybe it's because of Justice Hill. Maybe, but that doesn't feel like it's less chalk than Mark Andrews. All right, AP, let's go ahead and get into these positions here. I think, probably 2 of the best fantasy quarterbacks this season, and that really hasn't been that close. I'm going to go ahead and create a new build. Again, one of the best features about SaberSim, you can create multiple tabs. And then you can kind of bounce between each tab. Let's say you want the script out of Ravens winning one or a Bengals winning another. You have the ability to do that. We're going to go ahead and do this. Let's see. The player takes, right? I think we can call it that. The script, I know, is a great word for it too. But AP, talk to me about the quarterbacks, what you see here, what number that you'd rather see him at. Right now in the flex, we got Lamar at 22.79, Burrow at 19.11. Both those seem low, right?
They seem way too low. If you go back to September, I'm talking about Lamar Jackson. The game against Dallas, like the game before that, Raiders didn't really factor in. Script wasn't, ideal. But his floor is basically 23 fantasy points. Like, he doesn't have lower than 23 fantasy points in any game. Even last week against the thrashing of the Broncos, I want to bump Lamar up. I think Lamar, with all of those, and again, we might be overestimating, because a lot of people might be doing this. I hope that people are just jamming in the cheap captains, because I have a ton of interest in Lamar tonight at the captain spot. I want to be aggressive with him. And I want to also be like, I think we see points. We've seen these Thursday night games on a short week go one of two ways. When you have these teams that are viable, competent offensively, we tend to see a lot more points. Yeah. And I think that's going to be the case tonight outside of a defensive battle. And it's telling. Look at what Vegas is doing, like a 54 or 53 and a half point total right now. I'm not betting under on that. I'll tell you, I'm not betting it. I'm playing Showdown tonight and then focusing on NBA. But there's no way I would take the under. I definitely see points here. And if we see points, we have to bump up Lamar, because he can do it so many different ways. He has the high, out of all the quarterbacks in the league right now, by far the highest rushing upside as well. Yeah. I will say, like, you got to overlook the Denver game. This game is going to be completely different. 3 rushing attempts, the lowest he's had basically since the week I referenced against the Raiders. So, and he didn't need to use his feet. He's going to need to use his feet tonight. Very important game. Both teams want to win, and I think we're going to see points. So bump up Lamar, and I think Burrow is going to be able to pick apart the secondary as well. So I like Burrow as well.
Yeah, so we're both going to be high on the quarterbacks here, and it's a very good note about the Broncos game, right? Lamar did not have to use his legs. You have a short week here. There's no sense getting beat up when you were up 31 for most of that game there. And honestly, you're going to see that number tick way up. What we've seen from him, especially early on in the season, was 12, 15 carries and stuff like that. Not saying he'll hit that here, but he'll definitely be more inclined to rush it in a close game. Burrow, same way. He carved apart this Baltimore defense. What was that, 3-4 weeks ago now? I just think that Burrow is playing some of the best ball of his career. You also have to look at it, too. Without T. Higgins, it's the only really real red flag. But I think you're going to see other guys step in, fill out that role. Same thing that we have seen the past 2 weeks with Gesicki having a 100-yard game last time out as well. Yeah, I think these numbers look good. We bumped Lamar, 26.26, right? You got that. I think it's going to be a very high projection. I mean, it's a great projection, but I also want him to hit in the captain a lot more.
So, think about it, though. Let's just take a step back, look at this from the big picture standpoint. If the Bengals somehow come in and win tonight, again, it would be a big win. Snyder, I know your team's good, and you'll get all defensive. It's fun. We'll have a Ravens-Chiefs battle at some point, I think, in the playoffs, but we'll see. But if you're the Bengals, the disastrous start that you had, you started off, 1-4? Yeah. And then now you're sitting here and you're 4-5, and you're looking at the schedule and you're like, hey, if we can somehow get a win tonight against the Ravens, we're 5-5. Look at who they have: Chargers, Steelers, Cowboys, who are atrocious, the Titans, who are terrible, the Browns, who are absolutely terrible, Broncos suck, and then the Steelers again. That's a very favorable schedule. You get the win tonight, the Bengals are live, in my opinion, for the postseason. Very, very live.
I think you also have to think of it, too, where Burrow is freaking pissed. I don't know if you've seen the videos and stuff like that, but they are strictly business as things stand, right? If the defense can hold up, I do think the Bengals are treating this game like a playoff game in a sense on a short week.
Defense has been better, too. You can just see it when you look at the fantasy points per – they've been better against running backs. They've been better against receivers. That's why I'm bullish on Lamar. I think he's going to have to run. I think he's going to have to use his feet.
And my only red flag is that Eagles game. They were absolutely horrendous.
I know. Yeah.
That's I keep bouncing back to that because it's easy to look good against Deshaun Watson, Daniel Jones, Gardner Minshew. When Jalen Hurts came to town, they let up 37. But I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful. They have been better. That is for sure. They are not as bad as they were early on in the season. But yeah, I do think they're treating it like a playoff game. Burrow was strictly business. Even during the game against the Raiders when they were up big, he was still pissed off. I don't know. I know as a Bengals fan, you can always say this, but he just has the it factor of I don't know. I feel like he can elevate his play to win some key games. All right.
I feel like the last point. I feel like the Ravens too. Snyder, and I love it. Again, not talking shit or anything like that. I love when he posts these stats. Ravens, they smash, the NFC. But like when they get these divisional games and stuff, it seems like they're closer. We saw that with the Browns. I know that was an emotional game with the Browns, but it seems like these are absolute battles, and it feels like a semi letdown spot after destroying the Broncos.
Yeah, I do like the Bengals +6. I think anytime an AFC North game is that wide, you take the points, right? You take the points given to you. AP, big news here, right? We're going to have Zach Moss on IR. The Bengals traded for Khalil Herbert. Travion Williams was a complete non-factor last time out. Khalil Herbert could be active, according to Zach Taylor. Zach Taylor is the most coy coach in the NFL. You can't take his word for anything because he won't give you anything. So I'm not sure what to expect here. Keep an eye on inactives. Either way, Travion Williams' role will be minimal. Khalil Herbert probably wouldn't have that large of a role if he was active tonight after being acquired on Tuesday. Chase Brown looked amazing last game. And you know what? He looked amazing in Illinois. He looked amazing every time he touched the ball here in his short career with the Bengals here through 1.5 seasons. I was very happy to play him at chalk, on a main slate, and it paid dividends. He was very involved in the passing game too. He's always had that in his repertoire. But also, I just think that when you're looking at pass catching props, what did he have? Like 3.5 receptions last week. He cleared that by, quite a bit, and also caught a touchdown. This week, you're going to see a similar receiving upside. I do think that Burrow and when he had Moss would average about 3-4 catches a game. Brown would himself average 2-3 catches a game. All of this is going to be funneled into one, and that's Chase Brown. Derrick Henry, the Bengals were really good about taking Derrick Henry away in game one. He broke off a very long run in overtime. I want to say it was like a 60 or 70-yard run that made the numbers look way better. But this is my thing, though. When I look at Derrick Henry at 11-2, and I look at the quarterbacks, we want the quarterbacks. I just have a hard time clicking Derrick Henry's name tonight. AP, what about you?
There he is. There's our guy. I love how he throws the GIF up where it's the guy shrugging.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, Snyder, I love it. Oh man. No, good stuff, Snyder. Appreciate that, obviously. So Derrick Henry, the second we underproject this guy, fade this guy, he's going to own you. That's what happens. He just absolutely owns you. At least me. That's what. That's like what he always does. So I honestly don't want to. I think one way to get a little bit different. We think there's going to be points. The unique thing about the Ravens is they can pour it on in so many different ways. You could have a game where Lamar Jackson rushes for 100 yards and a touchdown or two, while also Derrick Henry rushes for 100 yards and a touchdown or two. That is in the realm of outcomes. And so I want to make sure that from a projection standpoint, that type of an outcome is included when we simulate this thing. So I think it's fine where he's at. I don't want to underproject him. His price tag is big, so that has to keep ownership down a little bit. I was going to say be a little I'm all for points, and he's a big part of the points. We're bullish on, bump him up slightly. Chase Brown. So he was on the field 80% of the snaps last week. He's awesome. They can use him in so many different ways. Practice in full. I want to attack this Baltimore secondary, but we can't ignore Chase Brown. He's just such a big part of this offense. He's awesome in the red zone. And so, again, I think that projection right there is solid. Let's maybe be slight. Let's bump him. We're all points tonight, so let's give him a slight bump as well. I don't have a strong take on Travion Williams or these backup dudes. I think you keep them in the pool, but it's the Chase Brown show. It's Showdown, though. Yep. So it's what happened? Again, we're not trying to forecast injuries, but what happens if he goes down, it's still tougher to run. It's easier to throw. I think Burrow just throws it 50 times if that happens. So again, I wouldn't be as high on those guys, but still it's in the realm of outcomes. Love Chase Brown's role. These two running backs both have slate breaking potential, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think one big note on a guy like Justice Hill in close games, right? I think you want Justice Hill projected a little higher if they're trailing, because I think it was a primetime game where the Ravens started off a little bit slow and they didn't really touch the ball too much, and Justice Hill was getting fed work. I want to say it might have been the Bucs game, or it might have been the Buffalo Bills game, but where Justice Hill went 6 for 78 and 1 through the air, 4 for 18 on the ground. I like over projecting Justice Hill a little bit because he very much correlates with the Ravens trailing in a game and absolutely crushing, because we have seen multiple games where he has absolutely crushed. You look at the Chiefs, 8 for 52, the Bills, 6 for 78, the Bucks, 3 for 44 and 1. Like, there is a lot of, I think Justice Hill always goes overlooked, but you're seeing at a very young season, right? How many games are we in for the Ravens? What's this, 10? He is optimal in 3 of them, minimum. And he might actually be optimal in 4. No, just 3.
It is just so telling with this Ravens backfield. When they're ahead, it's the Henry show. Rightfully so. When they're behind, it's Justice Hill all the way. So,
Lee,
again, that's script dependent, in my opinion.
Good shout, Lee. This is actually a great point. Keaton Mitchell is going to play tonight. Yeah, no, Lee, thank you. I didn't see him projected. That kind of threw me off. I drafted a ton of Keaton Mitchell in best ball. We removed the zeros, and I don't know if Keaton Mitchell is currently projected. He is not. So that's a good point. Going to bump down Justice Hill just slightly. It could take a touch or 2 away in the passing game. Keaton Mitchell being active is a big deal and was an absolute stud last year before tearing his ACL. So hopefully he reclaims that magic, not this week against the Bengals, but moving forward.
And one last note on Henry, it was more of a function of game flow when that game was going on. They had, if my memory serves me right, I remember watching this game. It was the Flowers show early on, and Flowers was nuking in that first half.
Yeah,
Henry averaged 6.1 yards per carry, which is pretty good. He just only had 15 attempts. I mean, he was 8 yards shy of 100 yards, and he got in the box. So, like, I'm not going to sit here and say that the Bengals contained him. It was a function of how the game flowed. You know, the opportunity wasn't.
You're talking about Derrick Henry?
Derrick Henry.
Yeah, but that was a 60-yard run in overtime that got him there.
Oh, that's right. You're right.
Yeah, so like,
see, that's where I said I'm wrong.
Contain him big time. Like, Derrick Henry sucked. He had an early touchdown in the first quarter.
Do you think the Bengals deploy that same strategy? All right, so then
I think you're similar in the sense of what you say about the Chiefs. Take away the best weapon, right?
Yeah,
they want to take away the ground game and force Lamar to throw.
All I'm saying is anytime I underproject or fade Henry, I get punished. I get absolutely punished. So I don't know. I like where it's at. I guess we can see and we can always adjust after we run the Sims. But yeah, I'm just tired of fading this guy because he can absolutely punish you.
I'm with you. We're going to leave tight ends on an island today, so we'll go ahead and touch upon wide receivers alone, because the reason why I want to talk about tight ends is because, look, we have injuries to both sets. You have Eric all out, you have Isaiah likely out. So we're going to leave tight ends for a second. We're going to talk about wide receivers only. The big thing here, Deontay Johnson donning the black and purple. Rashad Bateman is probably the one that you have to be concerned about, maybe getting hit the most. It's a short week, though, on Deontay Johnson. I don't even think they've had him for a full 10 days at all yet. When you look at Deontay Johnson, you've seen good numbers throughout his career for the Steelers. And then the Panthers, you started off halfway decent with Andy Dalton when he was helming the quarterback position for Carolina. AP, the Bengals have not been very effective, against the pass or the run for the most part. Zay Flowers has been the most Jekyll and Hyde player in the NFL. How many times does Zay Flowers have 25 fantasy points in the first half and then 0 in the second half? I think he's done that twice in 3 weeks. He was nuking last week, and he didn't even get a catch in the second half. And that is not, you know what? It's great for fantasy, right? Like, he's capable of these big plays. But Zay Flowers has probably been one of the most frustrating when you're just like, man, if a game stayed close or if a game stayed competitive, he could have 40 fantasy points. His upside is arguably one of the best for wide receivers in the NFL at this rate. Deontay Johnson being brought in does ding Rashad Bateman a little bit, but we also have to discuss what Deontay Johnson's role will be for this one. AP, Jamar Chase, 21. You've been talking about how with T. Higgins out, they're able to kind of scheme more toward Jamar Chase, trying to cover him a little bit more. That's going to be, a good talking point here, because 10-8. We already have, Derrick Henry projected right around there. You have both quarterbacks very high. Jamar Chase could get slightly squeezed here. Big news, too. Jermaine Burton missing a meeting on Saturday. Was supposed to be a big part of Cincinnati's game plan on Sunday against the Raiders. Ended up sitting out for this one. If the Bengals, go back to him, he's only 2,200. Could be one of the more popular plays tonight. I actually really do like him. But go ahead and give me your take on this wide receiver room.
Yeah, first off, absolutely crazy performance from Zay Flowers. That brings me back to last Sunday, which I don't want to talk about. I got made fun of in the Discord because my core ended up being the cash core. And injuries destroyed me last week, so it is what it is. I got in my main build two guys that went down, and then I had Dak, so that'd be a third guy. Just absolutely brutal. Nothing you can do about that, but still, I should get punished if I'm posting a cash core. I'm not a cash game player. So here's my take on Chase. I know teams are going to naturally try to bracket them. Just when you look at the Ravens, it's like wide receiver ones have just printed. Look at Cortland Sutton last week. He smashed. Terry McLaurin smashed a few weeks back. I don't know, man. I would rather bet on Chase and be bullish on him. That's the go-to guy. I like Yoshi Voss. Yoshi Voss is just a beast in the red zone. Another guy that they use. Captain viable. I'm kind of torn. I guess I would not remove him from the captain pool, but my preference definitely is Chase. And then it's like, man, the Bengals were. So when you go back to last week and you look at that game, now did I watch that game intently, closely, and just key in on it? No, I didn't. I caught bits and pieces of it, but just watching it, it was crazy how often that Burrow was throwing to 4 different tight ends. I think 4 tight ends. So he had. I got the stats up right now. So in last week he had 15 targets to the tight ends. Gesicki 6. Sample 4, Hudson 3, and Eric All had a few in there as well. I think two catches.
Yeah, I think it's important to note for me too, because Gesicki is not a tight end at all. Like in this Bengals offense, he is.
Hey, what's your take? What's your take on this though? Because I did not catch the entire game. He was only on the field for like 33% of the snaps.
But he ran.
He owed me because I faded him in my main build, and that last touchdown did me in.
I mean, it's important to note too, like he gets a low amount of snaps, right? In relative, like he's only in on passing down. He still ran what was the second most routes in the team, I think. Didn't he run like 24 routes, I believe? I could be looking at a previous week. But you know what you're getting from him with Gesicki. My thing here, though, if you think that Jermaine Burton, and I do think Jermaine Burton is going to get an increased role for this one, that's going to kill Yoshibas, because love him or hate him, I love Yoshibas. He has not been that good this year at all. He's actually been very subpar, but he does score touchdowns, which is great. But he has been losing this role. He has not been taking this role that has been handed to him with T. Higgins getting hurt and running away with it. He's actually been very mediocre for the most part, and that's why Jermaine Burton is probably going to get an increased role for this one. Hell, the whole smoke screen of the Bengals being pissed off at him, missing the Saturday meeting, and then benching him for the game against the Raiders could have also been a slight play by Zach Taylor to kind of save him for a divisional game on Thursday night. I'm selling Yoshibas, buying Burton. But AP, when I looked at Gesicki, he's never going to be in on rushing downs, clear rushing downs, because he can't block, right? He always lines up out wide. Rather have a true receiver out there anyway. But his routes were not that bad. It's just the snap counts for a fake tight end are always going to be a little bit shaky.
I like the Burton call. He's the one that he got caught. He missed a meeting, and then he was at the casino playing slots.
Yeah, that was the next day too. So he was still in the pajamas and sweatshirt. He was at Hard Rock. I think you were in that Hard Rock. You probably sat at that same machine.
Yeah. I mean, Snyder's been at that. I mean, that's what was he playing? The Gold Rhino or something like that?
The Golden Rhino, Buffalo,
Golden Rhino or Buffalo? I'm not.
Buffalo's
not a slot guy. Definitely, I don't know my slots. I like it. I like being bullish on him. I still think for me it's Chase, and then it's kind of a slot machine mentality with who it's going to be as far as the other receivers go. I don't hate the idea of just being slightly under on Yoshi Voss, touchdown dependent, in my opinion. I don't want to full fade him as well. So I like what you did there. I like you brought Burton up. I think that's going to be somewhat contrarian. That's going to be very contrarian. And what do we do with the so I like what you did with the Bengals side, bullish on Chase. What do we do with, on the Ravens side? For me, it's back to Flowers, it's back to Bateman. I mean, this is different than the Chiefs situation. Chiefs have no one. So obviously, D-Hop coming in is going to be the focal point. You got Flowers and Bateman who've been awesome, I think, for Lamar. There's just a lot of mouths to feed now. So I don't want to be overly aggressive with Deontay Johnson. I think that's fine. Maybe 5.1, a little, like they got to give him some looks. I mean, the dude has talent. But again, I think it's Flowers than Bateman. And I think we want those guys in our pool, and we want to be slightly over on them, especially if we're not as high on Henry.
Yeah, because it's like tough to use last week as an example, right? Like, because like you said, they barely dropped back at all. They were just able to hand it off most of the time after the first half. The most routes ran was Rashad Bateman with 17. Deontay Johnson only ran 4. You'd expect that to kind of trend a little bit better for Deontay here, but I think it hurts a guy like Aguilar, right? Like Aguilar, it just kind of fills into the wide receiver 4 role. Rashad Bateman, I still expect to get snaps, but you know how effective will he be in the passing game. But yeah, it's a tough one to dissect, AP, because Deontay should get more than 4 routes that he ran last week, but how comfortable can he be on a short week? It's all the way you think, right? I think Zay Flowers. Do you think 17.25 is still too low? I think it might be too low. 17.75, is that good?
I mean, he had it in the first half last time these teams faced. So.
It's
a projection, though. We're not trying to get him 100% into our lineups. It's not what we're trying to do.
I think that's now above Chase Brown, and he wasn't above him before. So I think that's important to note, too.
Yeah. From a value standpoint, we have Chase over him. I like that. I'm good with that.
Cool. All right. Tight ends then. AP.
And I like that comment from Lee Price. Any of these dudes, if they get good snap share targets, they're all viable because when you're in the red zone, it's Burrow's going to find whoever's open. So it could be any one of those guys, including the tight ends.
All right. So now we're going to go ahead and click the tight end position here. I mentioned I don't consider Gesicki a tight end. Ran the second most routes in the Bengals last week with 24 behind Jamar Chase, who had 39. So it just shows you what the Bengals were doing with their second and third wide receivers. They're very much mixing them up.
Bump them up. I'm not letting them burn me again. There's
You're
no
not
chance.
letting Gesicki burn you again?
No chance.
Just about to come back and say we didn't need him. He was barely on the field. Not playing. I want to keep him kind of very similar at bay here, just real quick, because I don't want to underestimate the Burton thing. I might come back after this, depending on the word on the Jermaine Burton situation. But if the Bengals are going to be like, hey, he's a full go tonight, I think that hurts Yoshi Boss. I think that hurts Gesicki just slightly and stuff. And it's going to be important to note here, Gesicki's ownership is 30% right now in the flex, probably about 4 or 5% in the captain. So that makes sense there. I'm okay being slightly under on him. This is as a Bengals fan, right? Like I genuinely I'm always very high on Gesicki coming in, but he is not 3,100 like he was on the main slate last week. He is 6,600, and that is 2,400 more than Mark Andrews without Isaiah Likely. Eric All being out, I mentioned how that's going to be a big boom for guys like Drew Sample and Tanner Hudson. Hudson was actually active last game, which was kind of strange to me, considering that would put him at 4 tight ends if you consider Gesicki one. That's also more to the point of I consider Gesicki a tight end. I think a wide receiver. I think Zach Taylor shares the same sentiment. But Sample and Hudson have to be very much in the mix. I think these projections are a little bit too low because you know how much Burrow loves to target his tight ends. It's quite often. I think these two guys are going to be very, very popular. Charlie Kolar gets to fill in for the Isaiah Likely role, even with Isaiah Likely and Andrews in. He was in the optimal lineup against the Bengals last time out. What's your take on the tight end situation here, AP?
Yeah, I think what we do, especially with Drew Sample, Tanner Hudson, we bump them up a little bit, not overly aggressive, but we want them to factor in from a projection standpoint. I like Gesicki where he's at. I think that's perfectly fine. Price-wise, I agree with Lee Price again. I mean, 6,600. It's kind of an awkward price range. Mark Andrews. So they didn't need him last week. They destroyed the Broncos. The week before, he played 74% of snaps, and that was with Likely active and healthy. So we know he can get the snap share. I think we have to be bullish on him. He's looked good outside of the start of the season and outside of the Broncos game, which they didn't need him. He didn't need to do much. He's looked good. He started to pick things up. So I think he's definitely going to factor into the mix here. That's bullish. That's very bullish. I like that.
It's not even a point up. We bumped him up a point. And I'm bullish on the whole tight end room as a general outside of, Gesicki and stuff. But look, Drew Sample and Tanner Hudson, I think, are underprojected just because Eric Hall has been very effective. But also, Burrow just loves to pepper these tight ends. They're going to play quite a bit, Sample and Hudson. The Kolar thing and the Andrew thing, like those are just two guys who are too cheap for the role AP. Like, it's going to be tough for me to not be extremely high on the tight ends here.
And the other thing, too, especially if you're targeting like the flagship and you're running 150 lineups, like you want in showdown formats, anything can happen. Those builds that, what do you call them? The correlation busters or the
correlation.
What's your term? Yeah. So like playing Lamar with Henry, playing 3 tight ends. Like there's a world where maybe 3 tight ends in this game specifically, where they're in the optimal lineup. It's out there, but it could happen with what we've seen. So I like this. I think I'm fine with it. Looking at props too, Lee Price, another good comment. Like comparing Mike Gesicki's props in the prop market to Mark Andrews that should tell us that we should bring these projections more in line for sure.
Yeah, I think we can keep Andrews there and then kind of bump. Because I'm not a big fan of Gesicki really here.
Screw Gesicki, man.
Yeah, we'll sell him here. I had his yardage prop 2 weeks ago too because I knew he was going to take over that Higgins role, and it was only 23.5 AP. The game.
Let's put him. All right, so the props are so in line. Let's bring him to like 1.15. Just slightly under Mark Andrews.
So like this or other way around.
That's fine. Just bringing them more in line. I I like that.
That would be good. All right, AP. Defense and kickers time. You got 2. I'm not going to say Justin Tucker's been the best kicker in the league because he hasn't been this year. But you have 2 pretty decent kickers, and it's going to be a dead range, right? No one's really going to want to click a kicker. They're both going to be under 20% here. Ravens D is not going to be the most chalky. They're 4,400. Bengals defense as well. What do you want to do with these guys?
Yeah, they're expensive now too. I think 8 and 7.5 are fine, and I want 1 kicker max per lineup. Like I don't want any double kicker. We'll let it pan out as is, but I'm just thinking out loud. And then defenses, whenever like a defense is in the 3K range, I'll always have some interest. Like just think of the Kansas City game. The Bucks, wasn't their defense optimal? I haven't looked at that optimal lineup, but I would think so, or it had to be close.
Don't think so. I'm going to check right now for you real quick. Because the reason why I don't think so is because I think Ryan Miller catching the touchdown plus Kareem Hunt catching, or getting it.
It was close though. Yeah, it was close.
It was $21,000 chop, and it was Ryan Miller with DeAndre. Yep, it was just no defense in that one, but it was close before all those touchdowns hit.
Yeah, I like that. Not going crazy with it. I mean, I would rather all day play one of those cheap tight ends over the defense.
Yep. All right, let's go ahead and run. We're gonna do 2,500 lineups. We'll do half the capacity of SaberSim lets us, and we'll do 2,500 out of 5,000. AP. While this is loading up, what are the shows that we have on tap today, and what does the NBA content look like for tonight's 3-game slate? All starting at 8.
Yeah, that's actually fun. Makes things interesting. 3-game NBA slate. We'll have our normal content for that we always do. Playbook, heat map, core plays. We have the Showdown Kings, Wiley, JBC. That is at 2:00, followed by the Print Factory Premium today with Big T and JSU. And that will be right after the Showdown Kings. And then we have a Hardwood. That's free today at 5:00.
Yep. Awesome. And let's go ahead and just get some score predictions here too, AP. Who wins tonight? What's the score?
Oh, man. All right. So I'm going to say, let's see. I'm going to say 27-24 Bengals.
Oh, wow. Going with the upset there. I like your thinking. How can I go against the Bengals? You know, if you're going with the Bengals, how can
Just
I?
to tilt Snyder. That's what I got to do.
Just to tilt Snyder, we're gonna go.
Like the more I go on the Bengals side, the more we'll see like him fire tweets out about statistics and stuff. And I like looking at that stuff. So let's get Snyder fired up. I'll take the Bengals tonight. I'm not betting it. Just full disclosure, I'm not betting it. I'm just playing Showdown.
I'm gonna ride with you. You know, just to kind of needle him a little bit more. Bengals win, 34-33. Should be a fun one. AP, look, let's see our contest sims here. After the changes we made, we're going to do projected score real quick and see what is the top projected team. Look at that.
I love that.
Lamar, captain. I bumped up Tanner Hudson a decent bit. I bumped up Kolar a tad too. That's a 4-2 underdog script. If you ask Mangone, he would love that type of build there. Also gets you a stud captain in there as well. You also have Lamar.
I really like that build. I'm gonna have a lot of builds like that tonight. 4-2 underdog.
It does.
With Lamar captain.
All right, let's do the $15 contest sim here. Let's see the ROI. Right now, this is across 20 lineups. Let's do 150 to see what.
I like that lineup too. I mean, it uses up all salary. It's
zero dupes because
how is that possible?
I think maybe under projecting sample right now ownership wise, but we only have 2,500 out of 5,000. So if we did 5,000, there's a decent chance we could have had a dupe. That's why running the most lineup you can is always very smart. Captain pool here. Here's what it looks like, AP. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the top Lamar captain. Let's see what we get. It's a 0 dupe, leaves 300. And that's a 5-1 Ravens with the Ravens D and Rashad Bateman. This one has Burton and Burrow. This is one that I feel like I could get behind. It's kind of bullish on Rashad Bateman. And I guess there's good reason why, right? Like he still ran the most routes on the team last week. Deontay Johnson being back, there's a chance that he's not going to get killed for it, or get killed by that acquisition, and he's under 10%.
So go down one right there. That one with Burrow, Sample, Chase. This is like when you look at this one, it's like how could that be? But there are paths. It's like Joe Burrow throws one out of the backfield to Chase Brown, then finds Sample, and it's that script where the Ravens take away Chase Brown, or I mean Jamar Chase, not Chase Brown.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And Chase Brown will be effective in the passing game. Like that is just very noteworthy when it comes to a very tough defense against the run, like the Ravens are. They're weak against the pass. Chase Brown can still be effective, not only on the ground, but you don't really expect it, but he can be effective through the air. I could think 4 or 5 catches are very much in the cards for a guy like Brown tonight. AP, let's go ahead and bring up a Jermaine Burton captain team because I want to see what the top one looks like here because, I'm very high on Burton.
This is all you. Here. I'm not going Burton captain.
All right, so this is the
Hopefully
thing.
It chips for you. Hopefully it chips.
He was supposed to be the featured guy against the Raiders. Like that was like he was supposed to come in and take the bull by the horns. I do like the idea of buying him at his absolute lowest price of the season, right? Like in terms of viability, with Higgins out, you're not going to see a better opportunity for a guy like Burton to burst onto the scene. If there is word that they're still pissed off about him, I'll bail. But right now, what it sounded like is that he was going to be the featured guy against the Raiders, and they were going to treat it like the Burton explosion game, right?
I'm listening.
If that is the case, look what it allows you to do. It's a 4-2 Bengals here. Here's a 3-3 with Andrews, Zay Flowers, Burrow, and Chase, right? It leaves 300, dupes a little bit. That's not great. But I just think that, look, I've been very happy captaining cheap wide receivers that did not work out for the Bucs game against the Chiefs with Raheem Jarrett. Jermaine Burton, that was different. I do think that if he is going to play, I think Zach Taylor and Burrow will get him the football because he is their second best separator outside of Chase. And I think just big
games early on too, right?
Oh yeah.
Or no, was that preseason?
Preseason. He was extremely good in the preseason.
Why? When Higgins was out earlier in the season, what was the reason behind not using him?
Well, Joseph was the one who really kind of won the job. Here's the issue.
And now
he's been mediocre, and he's also been a rookie, and he was also an immature rookie.
I think you might have sold me.
Also, Gesicki has been the second wide receiver when Higgins has been out. So Burton is finally kind of getting into that realm of opportunity, and I think he takes it tonight.
And we had it was so weird how they did the NBA. We had a massive slate, just massive amount of games on Monday, then no games Tuesday, tons of games last night. So Again, I wasn't as attuned to the Burton situation. Obviously, one Google, I saw it, but one Google or Twitter search of his name, it's just hilarious, the stuff that comes up. But I like that call. And look, like, the Packers receiver? Remember that he got benched for a game, sat on the next game, he goes off. Yeah, 2 touchdowns. His team's hugging him, celebrating him. I don't know. I mean, I like it. I'll be bullish with you on it. It's showdown. We got to take shots somewhere.
Yes, here's some Derrick Henry captain teams as well. Just for your sake, KP, I'm going to help your ability here to. We'll get rid of any Jermaine Burton teams just so you can kind of have a good sense too. Because Burton is appearing on like every team right now. I'm going to go ahead and remove and see what these builds look like without him.
Yeah, I mean, 6'5's in the you think there's a good chance he's wide receiver 2 for the Bengals?
I think there's a good chance that he runs the second or third most routes tonight. And I think a big play is in the cards, especially against the Ravens secondary like this.
And okay, so they benched him last game, basically, right?
Yeah, completely healthy scratch. And it was fully expected.
And he was supposed to be featured. And the week before, 41%. Is there anything that has come out since? It's a short week. All right, so I'm going to sell my. He's got to be healthy. He didn't play last week. It's a short week. They could interject him right back to it. Should be motivated after being benched. I would be. Like, can't do that type of stuff. Or he just doesn't care. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the risk is worth the reward here. And the big thing, Ben Baby, he was the beat reporter of the Bengals and stuff. They made it seem like Burton is 100% like was going to be a very big factor against the Raiders. I can't imagine things have changed if you're going to be able to just put him on the field. And it is expected that he'll play tonight as well.
If Cincinnati is serious about winning this game and they treat it like a playoff, like a playoff type of environment, who's the guy they go to? Who's the better receiver between Yoshi Voss and Burton? Like, who gives them a better chance to win if they take away Chase? Because, again, you're down Eric All. I thought that's huge. That's just one less tight end. Everyone knows now Gesicki's that wide receiver too. So it's like whoever that third option is going to have looks tonight. And if it's a guy who can create separation, that is the bullish case for Burton.
Very much so. Anything else that you want to look at, like any individual players before we sign off here?
Would you play Burton over Gesicki? I mean, that's like a $5,000 difference. So, I mean, no, I'm not playing Burton. So again, it's a good question. I'm not hammering the question at all. I always struggle with those where it's like you got one guy who's like 1,500 or 2,000, the other guy's 6,600. Like it's apples to oranges. Very difficult to say play him over the other guy. There's so many unknowns. And the other thing too is like, what are you playing? Single entry, cash game, whatever. Yeah. If you're multi-entering, you get an exposure number of both, and you relate it to the field. So we're bullish on Burton. Is kind of how I'd answer that.
For me, if there was a case for doing it straight up, I could be talked into it. But at the end of the day, Gesicki's been producing at a very high clip, even with limited routes, right? Like he's only running a route probably 55, 60%.
My only thoughts on the markets are historically. Now this is spitballing, going off memory, reading. Usually these situations are overvalued. Like usually it's a good, if you're a trader, now if it's your 401k and your money's just going in each pay period, you don't change anything. You just keep doing that. But if you're a trader or you're looking to reposition, usually these are the times where we eventually see some sort of mild correction, maybe going into November, December. But we'll see. But yeah, the market's obviously going nuts. Bitcoin's going nuts. And yeah, if you're like new into Bitcoin, I don't know if I technically could like do a show on it, but I think we get a better entry price, but I think we all got to be bullish on Bitcoin.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Yeah. Anything else that you want to
Rubio,
say?
you're a Bitcoin guy. Don't be all shy, aren't you? I thought you were
a little bit of crypto.
A little bit. All right. A little crypto.
Yeah, just a little bit. But yeah, I mean, should be a good one, AP. I mean, I'm looking forward to tonight. Who's your most important player for tonight's game?
I'm not going to steal your Jermaine Burton
Yes.
take. I think it's got to be, man, probably Lamar Jackson captain, because I want to be over. I just love him in the captain spot. And then I think there's so many different unique combinations that you can have with all of the different options that we have in the flex, these cheap receivers. So I think I'm going to be overweight Lamar captain. I know, kind of boring, going to be a popular captain, but with Burton, there's so many different unique combinations down there to help you get different. I think that's going to be a big route that I go.
Love it, love it. Obviously, mine is Jermaine Burton, and I do think that's no secret. Should be a good one tonight. Thank y'all for watching. Hopefully, y'all have a decent chance of getting the chop tonight. We'd be happy to join you up there as well. For AP and for I, have a good one. Have a great rest of your Thursday night, and go Bengals.
All in Jermaine Burton. Let's go.
All in.